you for joining in, and welcome to this first inaugural bootcamp session brought to you by Change Engine. This is our very first session where we are very privileged to have Mayank, who is the founder of Zopper, with us, and Varun will be talking to Mayank. And we have a very interesting topic today, which is going to be on how to build B2B SaaS startups from India for India. Because there's always been this debate that, should we be building a B2B SaaS product from India and actually selling to the US? But Zopper, on the other hand, has shown that you can actually build a B2B SaaS product from India and actually be selling in India. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs and founders who keep talking to us and have this question. So we'll try to demystify this and understand how has Zopper been able to do that. But before we begin, I'll just do a quick introduction of what Change Engine is. We are we are an ecosystem builder. We are focusing on AI as such, and largely what we do, our intent is to build the second generation AI products from India for the world, and which is delivering sustained customer value and driving global innovation. And we do it at three levels. We do it at an ecosystem level where we try to create a lot of content around entrepreneurship, around AI. We are involved in a lot of ecosystem creation activities. And at the heart of it is the ACE program, which is a fully funded 6-month accelerator program for idea-based, for early stage entrepreneurs. So, in a nutshell, what this program does is we provide rupees 40 lakh in seed money. We have almost more than 100 hours of mentoring, which is one-on-one for all our startups. And we have a unique customer advisory board, which we have come up with this year, where we have people sitting in the US who are experts in different functional areas like HR, technology, AI, sales, marketing, who help us in validating some of the problem statements and also help us to, help us in the go-to market, especially in the US. And the 6-month accelerator program, actually, we helped the startups in refining the model, help them in positioning, help them in the entire product iteration, go to market, and eventually the fundraise. We've had 2 cohorts so far, in which we've helped almost 6 companies, starting from Call Prep, Magic Roll, Sonic Lamps, and a lot of these companies. Sonic Lamp also happened to feature in Shark Tank early this year in January. And some of our mentors who are helping us in building this. And yeah, I don't take much of your time. This is the founding team behind the Change. And over to you, Varun and Mayank, to take it forward. Thank you.
And Mayank and I went to the same undergrad institution, so it's good to see him after so many years. We must have crossed paths while you were at NSIT. Just to begin, Mayank, tell us, what does Zopper do? What is the business?
Sure. No, thanks, Varun, for having me here. Thanks to you and Sharendra for calling me. And I think you guys are doing phenomenal work at Change Engine, investing in AI and entrepreneurs of the future. Zopper is an insurtech. We are a B2B insurtech holding for the Indian insurance ecosystem. If I have to simplify the business offering that we have for the benefit of our audience, if there is a large corporate in India, a large business that has a very large captive audience, and that business wants to offer insurance offerings to their captive audience, then Zopper comes into play. We offer the entire end-to-end infrastructure around creating an insurance product, integrating it with your core technology systems, and offering it to your customers in a seamless manner. So you call it embedded insurance, you call it an API-driven play, we call it an infra play. But at the end of it, what are we offering is an end-to-end insurance infrastructure support to any large business that wants to offer insurance to their customers.
Very nice. Very nice. What would be, for our audience, what would be examples of customers you have? Couple of examples and how they use your product.
Sure. So let us say you bank with a bank. It would be a public sector bank or a private sector bank. And at times, bank employees call you and request you to consider an insurance proposal.
Yeah.
So when you go to your net banking and when you see that insurance proposal that your relationship manager might be talking about, that technology is something that Zopper might have built.
Got it.
Or let's say you are booking a flight ticket and you want to go on a holiday. When you check out on the flight ticket flow, you get travel insurance as an option.
Yeah.
You can tick mark and travel insurance gets attached to your ticket. That is a technology which Zopper might have created in one of the leading platforms that you might be using.
Interesting.
Or in fact, if you are going to your nearby retail chain to buy a smartphone or an air conditioner or a television, and if they offer you smartphone insurance, like if you break your smartphone, so even that program might be managed by Zopper. So those are some of the use cases where we operate.
Yeah. And I think for clarity for my audience, so this is a group set of APIs which people can integrate, right? And on top of it, there's other help which we provide, but you are not the insurance provider.
Absolutely.
The insurance providers are someone else. You are providing the tech stack and program management stack between the insurance providers and these companies. Which
That's right. We are the middleware.
Yeah.
So we provide everything starting from how to create the plan, how to deliver the plan using the technology, how to sell the plan. We provide sales enablement support, and we also provide claim management support. So we have built entire periphery of things that a customer might need to drive their insurtech agenda further. So it is not just the tech platform, but the peripherals around it that we have created that have helped us in scaling our business.
Right. And Mayank, I think this is an important point, right? Because especially when we see B2B businesses targeting Indian companies, they generally become full stack, right? Because your customers don't demand just a narrow piece of APIs, but all the paraphernalia around it. Whereas if you see companies which are selling to the US, sometimes they are not full stack.
Yeah.
They're just doing very one specialized kind of offering.
Right.
And did you have this realization from the outset, or somewhere in between building the business, you understood that you have to do other parts of the stack?
See, this realization came very early on when we realized that India is a very unique market. Our DNA is very different. We are not a tech-first company yet. And if you are creating only technology and expecting that customers will use your technology and scale it, that's probably a long shot.
Right.
So what you need to do in addition to building technology is to enable the use of technology, force push the use of technology, and the need is in adoption of your platform.
Correct.
If you, a very common example is if you build a highway from place A to place B, but you don't enable the cars to be driven there, the highway is of no use. So in India, it's not true that you build a highway, cars will automatically come.
Yeah.
You will have to create infrastructure so that vehicles come there. And therefore, if you build technology in the Indian context, you have to work on avenues where you are driving adoption of that technology and also unblocking your customer on the pre and post dependencies on using that technology. For example, if you are building an HRMS, or if you are building a content management system, or if you are building a point of sale system, a point of sale system cannot be successful if the payments are not online.
Yeah.
A point of sale system cannot be successful if the inventory is not online.
Correct.
Now, one of the challenges that we faced back in time when we were building, the point of sale system for retailers in one of our earlier avatars is that retailer will be very willing to buy a point of sale system where they can do billing in a automated fashion. But for billing to happen in an automated fashion, their inventory has to be digitized too.
Yeah.
And if you say that I'm a tech company, I will not help you in digitizing your inventory, then you might be able to sell your product, but there will not be any usage or renewal. Therefore, you have to have a team. You have to have a team which will help the retailer in digitizing their inventory. Similarly, there are models where you deploy your technology, but nobody is using it because users are not trained how to use it. Users do not see the value in using it. Typical use cases are, let's say, if you go to a financial institution, you create technology to sell a financial product, but the staff will be very, very comfortable using the traditional methods of selling insurance or offering insurance, which might be paper-based, which might be a form-based method. But to migrate and make the staff unlearn their old methods and move to your technology platform requires handholding, requires effort. And the effort that you put in these peripherals will define how well your tech platform is adopted.
Oh, another very good point, Mayank. So not only that you have to be full stack, but finally you need to make sure that usage is being happening on the platform, right? Because ultimately you will look for renewals.
Yeah.
And even if you sell your product, but the product is not used, then you will never get a renewal, right? Or if you do a pilot, then it will never convert. Because this is one of the challenges I have seen early entrepreneurs face, that even if they've been able to make the sale, they've not thought through that how value generation for the partner will happen.
Yeah.
Because that is a human element. As you are saying, right? So I think that's good for an audience. So companies which have large audience, right? So this is it is a big decision that someone saying that we roll out an insurance product and so on. So how did you get your first few customers, right? Because I understand both selling and then even seeing whether the product is working for the customer all looks very long gestation here. So how did you crack your first few customers?
I think cracking the first few customers is the founder's job.
Right.
It can't be outsourced to a team member. I think that's the first principle. Secondly, and this is based on my personal belief, may not be applicable to things in general, but even if you are building a product, you have to be responsive to your customers' needs.
Yeah.
You can't go in the market with a preconceived notion that I know what is the right fit for the product for the market, and I will force fit or push my product to my buyer. And if my buyer is not understanding, he or she is at fault. If you go with that mindset, you will never be able to make your scale. Your sale, first couple of sales have to be made when you listen to your customer. When you build for that customer, you have to find the first believer who will believe in you, the founder, who will believe in your vision, who will believe in your capability and intent. And then you build the product for your first customer. There might be times when the founder will have a doubt that are they building a product or are they building a services company?
Yeah.
But that doubt is short-lived because until you react or respond to your customer's need, your product will not achieve its PMF. And therefore, people should not get confused that by responding to customers' needs, you are building a services company. No, you are only iterating to build a much better product which suits the problem that your customer is trying to solve.
Got it. And Mayank, so now in more recent parlance, we call these customers as design partners, right?
Yeah.
Who help to design your customers. So tell me this: that your first few design partners who helped you find you on your product, how did you get them? Was it through your network? Was it through a cold call? Was it an advisor introduction? And how much time did you take to get there? I'm asking this because this is a big question for new entrepreneurs. If I'm doing a B2B startup, do I need to have a network or I shouldn't do a B2B startup, right? Would a cold call work? And if I'm doing a cold email, who should I write that email to, right? And third, because of enterprise, how patient?
Yeah.
You don't know that whether you are being patient or it's never going to sell, right? But what was if I would push you a little, if you can tell us more candidly, what was that initial journey?
No, very fair question, and I will have to really, jog my memory to think about how did we land our first customer because it has been a long journey.
Yeah.
But if I were to, base it on my learnings, I would say network only gets you the first meeting. After the first meeting, you should be able to drive the next and the next and the next meeting based on the charisma that you are able to bring on the table for your client. In the first meeting, the prospect will decide whether they want to invest more time with you or not. It's like any, two people meeting where in the first meeting you decide whether you want to meet the person next time. It could be an interview, it could be dating, it could be anything. Similarly, in a business development meeting, in the first meeting, if you are able to show that you are empathetic towards the problem the customer is facing, that will help you in getting the second, third, fourth meeting. And then it depends on how well are you listening to the customer. Because when you go to the next meeting, if you are speaking language which your customer spoke in the previous language, that brings the frequency in alignment, and then you are able to create that magic. But I would really say that for first-time founders, being humble is very, very important. The sense of pride that I know it all and I know what my product will do and it can create magic for you. I think it's better to keep that at the back seat, and go with a lot of humility, go with a lot of empathy, go with a lot of patience and listening intent, and that's what will help you in creating the right product.
Very, very well said, Mayank. And repeated, which I really liked, is listen to the customer.
Yeah.
Right. Both from a point of view of the product and even from the point of view of sales. Right. That the customer should also feel that you are listening to him or her and getting the right solution.
Yeah, and I really, I may go and overemphasize on that fact, but for Zopper, if I were to speak about it, one thing which is very peculiar and unique about our company is that both me and my partner, Sujendu, who is the CEO, we both are available for our customers at a phone call. And we always pick our customer's phone despite the scale and size that we have achieved. And I think that uniquely differentiates Zopper from all the other companies that might be in the space. And I will give that as a message to all the young founders there that the company's reputation will take time to build, but your reputation is there on day one. And based on your responsiveness, based on your interest, keenness on a particular client, you can make or break your relationship with them. Unfortunately, I see young companies pitching to us. There might be some AI companies, SaaS companies, fund companies. These are very small companies, seed funded. But I will see a founder's office person, a sales guy, an SDR, all of them turning up on the call, like 5 people on the call, but the founder is not on the call.
Not on the call.
Now, this company is probably at not even at 100K revenue, 10K revenue, but the founder is not on the call. And if the founder is not on the call, then I wonder that who is carrying that feedback? Because for a very early stage company, it is the founder who has the vision of the product that they want to create. If they are not getting the information from the customer firsthand, they're only getting biased, filtered, Chinese whispered view.
Right.
And is that really taking them the next stage or not? I think that's the question which comes to my mind when I listen to pitches from early stage founders. And my message to people listening to this podcast is that at least for your first 5 to 10 customers, you should be the one selling.
And I think there are two important points there, right? Like when you're selling to your first few customers, you are still figuring out a product market fit, right? So you need to be listening to the customer to understand that is the product solving the problem or not, or what the product is not solving and what needs to be fine-tuned, right? And I think the second piece is also to give customer that confidence that he's in the right hands, he or she's in the right hands, right? That the founder is there on the call and he or she invested in the process of making it a success.
Correct. So I would like to turn the tables now, Varun. And you've been a successful entrepreneur yourself. You have built a company which I think many of us would have actually used during our college days and employment days, aspiring minds. So tell us more about your journey. How did you land your first customer? Because you were in an environment where examination were always traditionally physical, proctored examination. And you were trying to shift the industry behavior from physical examination to proctored examinations, digital online examination. So what were like few challenges which you still remember and you would like to share with us?
No, so thanks for the question, man. But it's very interesting time, right? We started our business in 2007, right? And many would remember that year because that was the year when the global crash happened, right? Lehman Brothers and everything happened. So think of starting a business and the world going into recession and no one is hiring. Right. And you're selling a product for recruiting people. Right. And I think that was the first challenge, right? That you would go and show it to customers. And again, very much like you, we were targeting enterprises. So we would be going to the top 5 IT companies and they'll say, Ki, very good product. We like you. It was me and Imanshu always who would go and sell the product. I think we hired our first senior sales guy probably 18 months after starting the business, right? So all the initial sales, it was me and Manshu who were making our sales. And they say, oh, very good product, but we are not hiring, right? And you would always be in a double mind that they don't like the product or they are genuinely not hiring because, in this room, we can say that the Indian customers don't always tell you the full story, right? And they don't want to say no, which
they're respectful to you.
They are respectful. So they not say you have a junk product. They'll just say, oh, we are not hiring right now. We'll call back. Right. So, but for us, I think the good thing which happened was that whenever you are in a recession market, you build a stronger product. Right. Because you look at, say, and a more resilient company, right? Because you're saying that, okay, which sector is not in recession? And let's start building the product for that. So that's some of the things which we did. We strengthened the product portfolio. We would have never done personality assessments if we were not in a recessionary time, right? So I think that's part of the answer of your question. And then what suddenly happened is that, again, and I'll ask this back to you as well, but startups are always challenging, right? So think about 2 years and no business, and you are paying, giving salaries to people and so on. And I remember that there was a time when we were saying that, okay, 6 months more, no business, then we are shutting shop. And then I remember that there was this December when calls started coming in, and one after another customer called and said, "Now we are hiring.
Yeah.
We want you," right? And I think in 2 months' time, we scaled the organization from 25 to 70 people, right?
Wow.
And it was chaos.
Yeah.
It was total chaos, right? Like no one knew what was going on at that point. A good problem to have, right? For an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So that's what happened in the sales process. And and we discussed a little bit more about it. That later there was another PMF which happened when we went to the US. But the other thing I wanted to say is that because you asked that people were doing paper pencil tests at that time, and we pushed for digitization. And I think that was definitely a value proposition for us because the general view at that time was that you cannot do it digitally. So companies will say कि possible नहीं है कि आप digitally कर सकते हैं. And we are talking about a very different age, right? We are talking about where colleges had computers which were not on a network.
Yeah, this is pre 2G, pre 3G.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We did not have mobile phones like everybody has mobile phones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and there were viruses on computers and all those things. So we would go and establish the LAN ourselves, right, to do the test. We had built in the application that if there's a power cut, when the power starts, the test will start from the same time, and so on and so forth. So it was interesting. I think there the question was that you have to prove that it will work. And for in our use case, I think our strategy was to do free pilots. And we would say, let's do a free pilot, which will convince you that this technology works. The only thing which I would suggest to our listeners is that whenever you do a pilot, you should establish with the company that what is the outcome which is expected. That if this outcome comes, then you sign the kind of line, because sometimes pilots are never ending.
Correct.
Right? And you just keep doing pilots. So Mayank, now another, let's segue. What was your fundraising journey, right? Because again, first time founders, one of the challenges is getting the first check. And of course, subsequent checks, it's always a moving target.
Right.
But how did it work for you?
Yeah, so I think funding environment has changed significantly from, let's say, last decade to now. I think today there are more startups vying for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is more money on the table, and there are more VCs and very active VC ecosystem in India. I think funding is also a function of your ability to withstand the questions that investors ask you, introspect and get back to them with the right answers. If you are honest in your fundraising process, and if you are willing to acknowledge.
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Just to see questions. Yes. Okay, it should be good now.
Great.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I think funding is also a function of how open are you to listen to feedback, criticism, and then course correct in your journey of raising funds. For Zopper, we have done 4 rounds so far. We concluded our Series D in November 24 last year. We've been lucky that we could land these funds based on the model that we created. Ours is a very unique model because we are able to scale while maintaining frugality in the company, and therefore we have not been burning a lot of money, and that has given us again that unique proposition. That we are able to build a business model at scale. Yeah. So yeah, that's a bit
But
of our
profitably or in a nice way, right? Like
yes. So we've been reinvesting our profits into our growth and new experiments, but our business is all run profitably.
But you made a very good point, right? Like, and I think this is similar to the point you were making when you were talking about listening to the customer.
Yeah.
And you said that, look, when you're talking to an investor, you get some feedback. And then you should make sure that you worked on that feedback when you go to the next investor.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, what we see many times when we are working with early stage founders is that they keep taking the same pitch again and again and don't learn from the last pitch as to what were the objections.
Correct.
Right? And it can be anywhere from tweaking something in the model to just tweaking the presentation,
Mhm.
right? Because you realize that your message was not going right.
Yeah, so I will, dwell further on it.
Yeah.
What is your vision, right? You should never lose sight of your vision.
Yeah.
If you want to solve for a particular problem, you should not get disheartened that this problem is not getting solved. So you should never lose sight of your vision. But the other thing is that, are you in a sense of denial?
Yeah.
That if somebody challenges my product or if somebody challenges my hypothesis, I'm not going to accept it because I'm so much in love, so much in passion with my idea that I will turn blindsided to any feedback coming my way.
Yeah.
I think one has to be agile enough
Yeah.
to listen to the critique that they are listening. I think the reason for rejection is more important than the reason for acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's also important to know what you are doing and what you are not doing.
Yeah.
And when you understand that what is it that you are not doing right, you are able to answer that question correctly. You are able to course correct in your pitch, and that gives you more confidence when pitching to the next set of investors. So listening is very important. I think generally in life, they say that God has given you 2 ears and only one mouth.
Yeah.
Listen, twice as much as you speak.
Sure.
So listening to customers, listening to VCs, I think it's a very, very important trait for founders to have.
You make sense, and I think you made a good point again. And so one thing which I keep telling early stage entrepreneurs, right? Like, see, the point which you were making was that anyway, the entrepreneur is so passionate about his or her idea, right? They think it's the best idea in the world, right? And that's true for all entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
right? Because entrepreneurship is such a hard journey that you need that passion to be able to embark on it, right? If you are thanda, to aap karoge hi nahi, itna challenge loge nahi. But that blindsides you completely, right? So when you hear feedback, you even if it is logically right and it's not working, it's not going to work, you still kind of say, nahi, nahi, I'm doing the right thing and keep doing it, right? So generally, I tell entrepreneurs that look, raising money is not success. First, the most important thing is that as an entrepreneur, you are convinced that you will be successful with this idea, right? And if you're getting a feedback and someone is poking a hole, then it is good for you to know whether this business succeeds or not succeeds, right? Because at the end of the day, you are the one who's spending all the time and you're going to spend probably the next 5 to 10 years on this thing. So it's also very important for them, right? Because irrespective of whether they raise the money or not, right? Like from our own example, when we were doing Aspiring Minds, we kept running an Excel and saying कि ये कितना बड़ा हो सकता है, how big this business can be. And every time the Excel told us that, look, it can't be a very large business in India, right?
Yeah.
And we said, okay, ho jayega, we'll find some multiplier. Lo and but the numbers didn't lie, right? And that's why we pivoted and we went outside India and we went to Philippines, then China, and then US to get a larger TAM.
Yeah.
So I think it's as important for the entrepreneur to be able to, get that, consume that feedback and course correct.
Absolutely. I think entrepreneurship also comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
You have responsibility towards your customers. You have responsibility towards your employees. And most importantly, you have responsibility towards your investors because they have put trust in you and given you capital to invest in your idea.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think realizing that the responsibility goes far beyond your own set of beliefs and I would say illusions, because entrepreneurship also becomes elusive at times.
Yeah.
So I think that realization is very important, and you always have to course correct, fast fail, iterate.
Yeah.
Only then you find that right product market fit and the product market and timing fit.
Yeah.
So that you can scale. So yeah, I think I agree with you that entrepreneurs need to have that ability to listen and course correct all the time.
Yeah. So Mayank, while I also now invite questions, if anyone has any questions, please put it on the chat, and I love to take it to Mayank. Mayank, while people send us some questions, so Shalendra started with a question on B2B businesses from India for India versus B2B businesses from India for the West.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a big doubt in minds of early stage entrepreneurs, right? Like even in Change Engine, we get a lot of AI entrepreneurs who are building some application for the BFSI sector or the e-commerce sector and so on. And the question is that should we build it for India or should we build it for the West? And what our experience and understanding has been that the PMF looks different in India versus the West. The sales strategy also looks very different. Did you ever come across this question in your journey, or would you have any advice for our founders on how to tackle this question?
Sure. So, a great question, Varun. We operate in the insurance industry, and interestingly, I have traveled across multiple countries and tried to understand what problems different countries have in the insurtech space. Surprisingly, I found that the challenges are the same everywhere. You go to the US, you go to Europe, you go to Southeast Asia or India. The challenges that the insurance industry is facing in all these countries are similar. However, the openness of the industry participants to adopt, embrace, and invest in technology is at different stages of maturity. So maybe in US and Europe, they started 10 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
And therefore, the kind of insurtech interventions which are happening there, they're at a much higher stage of maturity
Understood.
than they are in India or Southeast Asia. So it depends on the industry segment that you are in. And it's important for the entrepreneur to understand that why are they wanting to or willing to, or why there's a need to sell outside India.
Yeah.
See, selling outside India also comes with its cost, complexity, and other peripheral
Larger gestation period.
gestation period. So one should have a clear understanding of why do they not want to sell in India but want to sell outside. Is the market not large enough?
Yeah.
Is the price point not suitable for the Indian market?
Yeah.
Can they only sell in the US because of certain reasons? Are there regulatory reasons for which they cannot sell in India, or they can only sell in India, not outside?
Yeah.
In the insurance sector, as it is regulated, for us, the regulation is also one of the reasons why if we go to any other country, we have to adjust our technology stack as per the regulations of that country.
Got it.
That brings with it another layer of complexity because you have to adapt everything to the new regulation. While the core flows remain the same, but regulatorily you have to adopt. So it also demands deep introspection that what is the need? Are you selling in the US because of the glamour, because of the I don't want to use that word here, but because of the glamour it brings with it, or you want to sell in the US because you realize that India is not a large enough market.
Yeah.
I would go to the extent of saying that if you're building in India and if you feel that selling in India is possible, there is a market here, spend the first few quarters or first few years selling in India because it might be easier to just convert a customer here. You can be physically be in the office of the customer. If you straight away jump into the mission in the US, you might be lost yourself, let alone guide the customer into finding a way out.
So what you're saying is that it has to be an analytical decision first of all, right? On the TAM, on the per customer
unit economics,
unit
commercial
economics,
value,
exactly.
and
So
but
everything being equal or reasonable, India will be easier versus the US. But of course, if analytically you come to the answer that India is not going to be large enough or the unit economics will not work, then you have two options. Either you go to the US or you first start building in India and then go to the US.
Yeah, I think this answer will differ from industry to industry, product to product.
Sector to sector, product.
For example, if somebody is building for manufacturing sector, probably Indian markets are not very deep.
Yeah.
You might need to go to other parts of the world, maybe US or China or somewhere else. But if you are building for edtech, for example, India has a very big
large market.
If you're building for insurtech or financial services, India is a very big market and growing market.
Yeah.
So it depends on a lot of parameters of your specific business.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a couple of questions here. Let's discuss these. So one is from Prashant. He said that I have a SaaS product around drone embedded systems, and my customers are drone-based service providers. Right. My fear is that if I provide my embedded system, they can reverse engineer my service side of business. So how can I protect it? So basically saying that, look, I have an embedded system which goes into a drone system. My customers will be people who are selling drones. And if I sell, my worry is that if I sell my piece to them, then they can reverse engineer.
Sure. So I'll give you an example of InsurTech. And this question was asked by us, to us by every single investor.
Every single investor.
That if you are building for a large corporate, why can't they build it themselves? And they will outsource it. I think the answer is in the DNA of an organization.
Yeah.
The DNA of a drone manufacturer will be to manufacture drone, not to build that embedded technology that you are building.
Yeah.
The DNA of a travel portal is to make sure that all the airlines with the right price point are on their platform, not to create an insurance product.
Yeah.
So it's the core DNA or core competency of an organization that companies dwell in. If the product that this person is talking about if it is unique in its own, and if you can do iterations on the product which makes it the best product in the market, then even if a drone company wants to create such product, they will not be able to invest so much of time, innovation, and resources to outsmart you. So one should not worry about whether my client will create an offering which will be similar to my offering. For that matter, all the large IT companies who were your clients, they could have created online tests. They were tech companies themselves, but that did not happen. So I think that fear
Is misplaced.
is misplaced, and it is easily solvable if you are ahead of your game, if you are able to preempt. Because the advantage that you will have is you will be working with, let's say, a dozen drone companies, and you will be able to understand what are the different iterations you need to do to make your product universally acceptable, which a drone company may not be able to do because their core competency lies in some other area.
And I think you have articulated it already, but part of the answer is that staying ahead of the curve, right? So your product should have the depth and continuously be ahead of the curve, right? So if you stop innovating, right, then you can become a commodity which anyone can build. But if you are always innovating, always ahead of the curve, then you will not be replaced because anyway, the other person's core business is something else.
Correct.
Right? And I mean, they're very simple examples, right? Like there have been companies with $500 million to $1 billion valuation with just doing surveying. Now, from that point of view, anyone can build a surveying tool internally, right? But yet, people use a service from outside to do a survey or send bulk emails, right? But again, it's like the ease of using the product, the feature set. It has to be forward-looking. You need to be really understanding your customer well, right? Like for example, the Amazon customer never goes off Amazon, right? So the customer should be sticking to what you are doing, and then you'll not be
right. It's I think difference between somebody thinking 100% of the times about a certain product versus somebody thinking 1% of the time about that product. Somebody thinking 100% will definitely make a much superior product.
Right. Agreed. Another question, and this is an interesting one. I think it says that how to brainstorm ideas and find problems to solving B2B SaaS. Now, I think this is coming from a perspective of when you're a founder with a couple of years outside of college, right? So you really don't deeply understand the industry and the problems which the industry faces and so on. So what would be your recommendation? Would you say don't do B2B SaaS if you have not immersed in businesses at all and give it the time to immerse in businesses, or you think there's a way to come up with?
I think there's always a way, and early stage founders may not be an existing, this species will not exist if it requires experience. I think the way to find problems is to enter into conversations with industry experts and talk to them about the problems that they face. And the way to understand the problem is not to ask them the problem, but to ask them to explain a particular flow, a particular business model, or a particular use case. And while they are explaining to you their industry, their use case, their business, you identify the problems that they might be facing and how could you bring efficiency into it.
So it's again by listening.
It's again by listening and asking intelligent questions that you can identify your problem. So if
how do people get access? Like again, if you're out of college, 2 years, how do you get access?
See, I believe that anybody who has spent 15, 20, 25 years in the industry, they love to talk to people and they love to share their learnings. And today, I think founders are smart enough to reach out to anybody through LinkedIn, by going to events, by going to webinars, seminars. Even today, I will put the question back to this person who asked the question. Even in this forum, you ask the question, right? You could post similarly your questions in multiple forums and ask for people's experiences. Like we are right now in a co-working environment. If you were to talk to the person who manages the co-working about their daily routine, I'm sure that when they tell you their daily routine, how do they fix appointments, how do they allocate meeting rooms. If you are a founder, entrepreneur trying to solve for co-working space environment, I'm sure you'll be able to find 5 problems and at least find solutions to 2 or 3.
So keep your eyes and ears open.
Yeah, I think asking intelligent questions, listening, and then trying to find avenues where you can solve is the way to go.
So Mayank, this has been a very interesting conversation. Let me square it with 2 last questions. One is that how are you sure when you get a startup idea is that this is the idea I want to work on, right? Like because you get an idea a day, right?
you can never be sure.
Yeah.
Because at every milestone of the startup journey, you get a lot of self-doubts. You get doubts coming from all directions.
Yeah.
So you can never be sure. But yeah, I think if I think about it practically, when you feel that the customer is valuing your proposition and they're willing to pay for it, and if they're paying you X, they're deriving 5x, 10x, 20x value from it.
Get some user value.
Yeah. So I think that's the time when you should feel sure about that you have built something which is of value to your customer. And secondly, if a customer is willing to vouch for you, if a customer is willing to give references and speak on your behalf, I think that's another validation and confidence building measure that should tell a founder that the time has come for them to push the accelerator and scale from here.
Makes sense. Last question, man. So this person is asking that if you were to build the business again, what would you have done differently, especially given the age of AI and evolution in technology? So would you do anything differently today?
Yeah, I think I would hire more smarter people who understand the latest technology and who can do an hour's job in a minute by using AI. Yeah, but fundamentally, I don't think I will do anything differently.
The fundamental kernel of
the drill, the rigor, the hard work remains the same, and I think one has to go through the trenches to be able to create a successful company. So it couldn't have been different or better.
No, great conversation, Mayank. I think we covered quite different aspects of building a business with listening to customers, founders taking the job of sales themselves, right? Testing whether your idea is a good idea or not a good. Let me ask you my last question. So we've talked about a lot of analytical stuff and how to build a business and so on, right? But the entrepreneurial journey itself is a tough job.
Yeah.
Right. And it takes a personal and emotional toil, right? Like I always say that as glamorous as it seems from outside, it is as hard from inside, right? And a lot of times you're fighting a lonely battle, right? What is your advice on this front to entrepreneurs on keeping up their spirits, continue to be motivated, not get into mental health issues with their startups, anything which you have experienced with other people around you? And I think this is becoming more and more an important conversation.
Yeah.
Just because how we are seeing the global landscape with more and more young people having mental health issues, right? And within that, entrepreneurship, as glamorous as it is a tough journey where you are questioned at every moment, and you have to prove your right to existence at every moment, right? So, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on mental health, so I will avoid answering on that front. But I think what is important if you are starting up is your reason of starting up.
Yeah.
If you are starting because of peer pressure, if you are starting because you have watched dozens of Shark Tank episodes and you also want to become one of them.
Me too.
Or if you are starting because you did not land a good job in college and you thought, okay, let me start up. I think those are all maybe short-lived reasons and they may not give you motivation enough to withstand all the tough times that entrepreneurship will throw at you.
Yeah.
But if your why is clear, if you are truly passionate about solving a particular problem or solving problems in general, then what happens is that in tough times, when you are now feeling challenged, when you're down, you find that existential question, right? Why am I doing all of it? Why am I in the middle of so much of trouble? Why am I inviting all of these problems? And at that point of time, if your why is strong enough, then you get that motivation and grit to get over all the challenges. But if the why is not strong, then you may want to call it quits, and then you fall into the trap of feeling stressed, frustrated, and then mental health issues might start showing up. So you should do entrepreneurship for the right reasons, not for any random reason. I think that's very, very important.
Great note to to complete this discussion today. That you need to have a good reason to be an entrepreneur, and it shouldn't be in a movement or a B2 or a show off that you're doing your entrepreneurship. And if you have a strong reason, that will carry you through. Thank you. Thanks, Mayank. Thank you for spending the time today.
Thank you.
It was a very good discussion, and we'll come back to you guys with more guests and more wisdom very soon. Thanks for attending and sharing some very interesting questions. Thank you.
Thank you.